no matter what level you're at, whether you're a crew employee or a grill operator or the cashier, you are being measured at the position you are currently in, potentially to do something more. But your report card is what you're doing now. So if you have a desire to do more, which I hope you will, Chipotle, do your very best. Show up. Be ready to show your guests, to show your teammates that you are here, you're a team player. And when you experience, not if and when, you experience adversity throughout your career, just get back up.
Welcome back to another episode of the Prosper Brief, the podcast dedicated to elevating the future of the food service and hospitality industry. I am your host, Jeremiah Wynn, and today I am sitting with a true industry leader, Lois Alexis-Collins, Chief People Officer for Field Operations at Chipotle Mexican Grill. With a deep passion for people, culture, and operational excellence, Lois brings a unique perspective to what it means to lead through change, develop high-performing teams, and build a workplace where purpose drives performance. Stay tuned. Attention emerging leaders in food service and hospitality. Are you ready to accelerate your career? If so, join us for the Accelerate Conference on October 22nd through the 24th at the Omni Hotel in Dallas, Texas. Gain insights from over 1,000 collective years of business and leadership experience. Engage in more than 30 focused breakout sessions. Be inspired by 5 empowering general sessions featuring industry experts. Don't miss this opportunity to build valuable connections and elevate your leadership talent to give your business the competitive edge it deserves. Register today at prosperaccelerate.com. Lois.
Yes.
How are you doing?
I am doing great. Thanks for asking.
You're welcome. So you're in Newport Beach?
I am in beautiful Newport Beach, California.
How's the weather out there right now?
Oh, wow. It's gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. I believe we're in the 70s today. Not much humidity, a little foggy, but all things considered elsewhere, it's really nice.
That's really great. Me and my wife, before we ended up moving to Phoenix, we were living in Reno, Nevada, and we had aspirations to one day live in Newport Beach. But at the time, I didn't even have a job. So our next best thing was Huntington Beach. And I ended up getting a job offer at a college in Long Beach. But it was this whole thing. But yeah, we ended up in Phoenix. But I do love that area. I love Orange County. I love the beaches there. I think Huntington Beach is like underrated. Like the beaches are so clean. And every time we go there, there's always a place to park. Like it's really nice.
It's beautiful. It's
How long have you been out there?
Almost 2 years.
Okay.
And I live right outside of Newport Beach, but almost 2 years. Very close.
Where are you from originally?
Well, I spent most of my career in Georgia, in the East. Yeah, but I was born and raised in I was born in the British Virgin Islands, little island Antigua. And I was raised in St. Thomas, the U.S. Virgin Islands, owned and run by the United States. And I moved up to the United States to attend university, attend college, and decided to stay. Met my husband here in Georgia and started my career from there on throughout the restaurant industry.
What college did you go to?
I started out at Rollins College in Orlando, Florida, and then I transferred to Clark Atlanta University, graduated from Clark Atlanta University with my bachelor's. And then I think maybe 3-4 years out, I got my MBA from Marylhurst University.
I love that you started on the islands and now here you are. You know, you're doing corporate things at the C-suite level. Was this always your dream and your aspirations to, do things at this type of level with corporate?
I can't honestly say it would have been at the time I thought was on restaurants. I sort of fell into it right out of college. My goals at one point, my bachelor's degree is in political science. So my goal was actually to attend law school. And I was working over the summer and I had some school debt, student loans, and said, you know what, I really need to get a job, need to work. And so started working in talent acquisition for a staffing agency and then really quickly after that, started working for in full talent acquisition at Waffle House. And that's really where I really broke ground and realized this is what I wanted to do. This is a space pretty much I wanted to be in throughout my career.
So, talent acquisition at Waffle House. How did you end up falling into that particular?
Exactly. So I worked for a temporary staffing agency doing the summer once I decided to not go on to law school just yet. Actually, my goal was to pursue it later on. But a recruiter called me, and I was really taken back. The temporary staffing agencies was being bought out by another larger organization. And at the same time, they called me and, just talking about a more longer term position, great opportunity. And if you've lived in Georgia, Waffle House is on every corner, sometimes one on each side of the highway. So they're very well known. They're basically, that's where their corporate office is, and that's where they started. And so I knew who they were. I just never thought I'd be working for them. And so I started out as a recruiter, just started out recruiting for Waffle House, and it was very untraditional than you do today. It was very much grassroots recruiting for the organization and recruiting candidates from some of the top schools in the country, Georgia Tech, Harvard. Wasn't your typical just put an ad in the paper. That was something the company really didn't believe in at the time. And so was very successful at it, very, very grateful that the leadership in the company saw something in me and really invested in my development. I actually attended Georgia Tech Management Development Program, certificate in management development, and just fell in love with the restaurant space. One of the things that I was really inspired by is, regardless of your role at that company, you literally had to go and work in the restaurants for several weeks and really understand the business itself. The leadership really believed in leadership by example. And so I not only learned how to recruit talent, but I also learned the business, the details of the work that requires for someone to be successful, the P&L, the talent pipeline, succession planning, the ebbs and flows of the business 24/7, 365. And so I worked there for about 7 years and worked my way up onto more leadership talent acquisition roles and then moved on from there.
So, having ambition to do things legally, wanting to be a lawyer, whether that be in the courtroom or, just being a copywriter in the back room, was it uncomfortable to go from that to now all of a sudden you're going from college and universities, you're trying to get people to buy into this new organization? Was that uncomfortable for you at first?
Well, I have a very outgoing personality and I love connecting with people. So I think initially when it happens the first couple times or you do a couple job fairs, after a while, you're basically having a conversation. And that's the way I looked at it. I never approached someone very aggressively, was more curious to understand what their career goals and career paths were. Recruited from a lot of universities throughout the country. And so was very much created a very relaxed environment for candidates. Didn't come across that I was trying to sell them something, was more so informational. And a lot of companies, there are a lot of great secrets, not intentionally, that people don't know. And I felt that I was a really good resource for that and saying, did you know that, we do this and this is some of the things we offer, whether it's, supporting our employees as far as their continuing education or the benefits. And many times they did not know, they weren't aware. So, my approach was more from an awareness approach and also look to see how they responded, if they were engaging, if they were curious, if they were willing to think a little bit outside of the box, take on a challenge, because it's not an easy position, that's for sure. And eventually I became very comfortable.
Now, going to the now, right, and the conversations that me and you have had within the last couple weeks, you've said things about, as leaders, it's important for you to get, and before you can become comfortable, you have to first be uncomfortable. And another thing that you kind of like spoke on was this idea of breaking free from your silo and understanding other departments, other roles, and being able to have empathy for, everybody from the janitor, the custodian, to the manager, to the fry cook. So how has your experience led you to this point to where you implement this with the advice and the leadership you give today at Chipotle?
So one of the amazing things of working in the customer-facing industry and the food industry is that every day is different, and it can be. And so I've worked for some amazing organizations as Chipotle, where you're really spending a lot of time in the business, understanding the business. And so I essentially, whether it's being in the restaurants and trying to understand the day-to-day operations of the business and trying to remove distractions from our managers, creating tools and resources for them more effectively, or collaborating with someone at our corporate office here who is working on a project regarding something that eventually we will escalate down towards the restaurant. I think you have to get in their space to understand where they're at. Because if you have a one-track view of something and not understanding the other facets of the business, then your information and input will be slightly, I wouldn't say incorrect, but flawed overall. And so I'm very curious. I think being curious is really important, regardless if that's your area of specialty. So for me, I'm very curious as how do we make our food? How much time does it take our chicken to be cut? What are all the steps our general managers have to do on a day-to-day basis in order to create a successful experience and a happy experience for our guests and to take care of our employees? Because along with that, the general manager have a lot of other responsibilities in the restaurant. And so if you're not physically or really in tune as to what they're doing, how can you successfully create something and take it downward to the organization, to the restaurants? And so that goes full circle throughout the organization, regardless of what department, whether it's finance, marketing, human resources, safety. It's very hard to give your opinion and recommendation if you're not fully embraced in the understanding how these functions operate as a leader, as an HR leader. And so I personally think it's important for you to understand the whole business of any business organization that you work for or you support, and you seek to understand before you make decisions or even give recommendations, as you may not have the full picture of the why and may not be as effective in implementing certain things, or make very big mistakes by not really doing your homework on understanding the whole body of the business itself.
How would you encourage leaders to be more curious?
Build relationships with functions outside of departments, outside of your department, and approach it to me in a way of seeking help, curiosity, versus someone who's doing something wrong. I'm really curious, how were we able to do this? People love to talk about what they do. And if you give them that opportunity and just listen, you can really learn a lot from it. I do the same when I'm interviewing a candidate. If I'm doing most of the talking and the candidate is doing most of the listening, there's a problem. I'm not learning anything about that candidate. And so I really try to carry that practice on. But most of it comes back from the beginning of my career and really being, moving into the actual physical part of the business, never working in restaurants, but having to work in it for at least several weeks and understanding every single shift, all different parts of the restaurant business. I mean, honestly, I was really humbled the amount of work and resources that it takes, to take care of your guests and of the team members. And in my position, my job is to make sure they have many of those tools and resources and they're being heard. So in order to do that successfully, I have to really understand what they do. And so you can take that playbook to any organization, any department. It just depends on how you approach it.
Do you have any specific examples that you can share with us where, because of your experience spending weeks at the restaurant level, it helped you make a good decision at the level that you're at?
So not long ago, we implemented a system, an AI assistant, Avocado, through Paradox. I'm sure there's a lot of publicity and a lot of, it was a very large implementation that we had. And a significant amount of resources in the organization to pull things together. Our amazing technology team, marketing, HR, the field team, the operations team, lots of work behind the scenes to have a very effective rollout. But it was also really critical because it was an applicant system. And so if something would go awry, we could literally shut our system down, our hiring process down. And that's not something a position you want to be in. At the influx of the magnitude of candidates that we recruit on a daily basis, and especially during some of our really, really peak seasons. And so lots of responsibility and pressure to make sure you're making the right calls, and lots of feedback and input from a multitude of different, functional teams through the organization. And one of the things that I wanted to make sure was done wherever we landed was that we went through what we call a stage gate process. And what that process basically is that it's significantly important that before we push the button for the entire organization, we're going to test this in smaller increments in case there are some unexpected failures throughout the system, whether it's through technology or something. And so I actually personally flew down to the market that we decided we would test this in, where we chose 7 restaurants, a patch. At the time it was about 7. And on day 1, being face-to-face in the restaurant that was pushing that button in to turn Paradox on, Avocado. And it was amazing. However, initially, we had some things that, from just pushing the button with 7, we had some things that definitely we needed to take care of before we pushed the button for 3,700 restaurants. And that was the perfect example for me of working cross collaboration with our functional leaders, whether it's our IT department or marketing department or HR, anyone, to say, hey, this is something that is really important that we do first. And it was embraced very well. And so if there was something that did go wrong that was at a larger magnitude, if we had 3,700 restaurants shut down and not able to recruit, that would be a significant problem for us. So that's why it's so important. And I knew that, one, from overseeing the talent acquisition piece and understanding that technology is amazing, but there are instances where things can go awry, and I wanted the least amount of damage to our business and to our guest experience and to our employees happening. And by collaborating with all the different departments, we were able to successfully implement this new system, which is doing extremely well right now.
That's great. Congratulations on this. I have a question. As you're talking about this, so I see you, right? You're now inside the store. You're seeing how it's working. How do you empower those managers to feel like if there is an issue with something that was implemented, that they can reach back up and actually have a conversation and impact change in the organization?
So there's a multitude of things that we do as a company to make sure that we're staying very close to the business itself and our employees. Obviously, we have different layers of leadership in the organization. For me personally, I do what we call roundtables and market visits. Even just recently, I've been traveling for about 3 consecutive weeks, visiting and touring different markets. and making sure that I'm speaking to the general managers, the field leaders, and addressing any pain points, any concerns. And then what I look for is consistency, obviously. Is this happening here? Oh, I heard about it there. And then making sure that I'm connecting with those functional leaders, those departments, giving really good candid feedback as far as what I'm hearing. And then one of the things that's really nice that we're doing is my HR business partners, they're all over the country. They're supporting these teams. And then they facilitate these meetings for me. But then we have a process where they receive a response back, whether it's from myself or that functional team department leader or manager, to say, Lois was visiting your market. We just did a roundtable. You had a question about this. And Lois wasn't able to answer it. Here's where we are. It could be yes, it could be no, it could be that's something we're looking into. But I think letting people know that you hear them. There's a saying, we like to be seen, people. We like to be valued, and we like to be heard. And so by showing up to our restaurants and showing our appreciation and our gratitude to our employees, I think that speaks volumes. It's a really big deal for them. By following back up and at least listening to them about some of their concerns or their challenges, that's really important because at least someone took the time. And that's not just myself, actually. That's something our operators consistently do. There's other corporate team members participate in market visits, but it's a heavy part of my responsibility. And it's actually, to be honest, one of the most endurable parts of my job. If you'd ask me, what really puts a smile on my face is just really just seeing the gratitude. And, so many employees will come up to you and thank you and say, it was because of Chipotle why I was able to purchase my first home. Or it's just amazing the lives that we've inspired and have changed in a positive way. And so it just does something to me personally. And it also gives me a lot more energy and fuel to go back to the table and address some of those pain points that they may have to see what can we do to fix those things as a company. When you look at it, we're opening up one restaurant a day, literally right now. Yes, I know. It's just literally saying that it's so hard to believe,
Wow.
that we're actually opening up one restaurant a day, but that is exactly what's happening right now. The magnitude of lives that we're changing throughout the organization and in the field. But it's just fascinating to me. But it takes a multitude of people and functions and teams that really are not out front to the guests, but they're behind the scenes taking care of our employees, who then takes care of our guests.
Speaking of that, I know we spoke a little bit, maybe you can shed light on it now, but for those people who are working at the front line and they would like to see themselves, go deeper and go higher up the ladder, do you guys have an opportunity for growth when, kids are coming in, maybe they're 17, 18 years old and they really love the culture? Is there any way for them to possibly be in sales or, be in finance?
So yes, absolutely. And also for the corporate positions also. There's so many stories I can tell you of different individuals that started out their career at the frontline level that are running, hundreds of Chipotles in our organization, or working in our corporate office, or working in one of our training or our L&D department, or even human resources. I mean, I have HR business partners that started out in our restaurants. And so, yes, and also attending university, attending college, or raising a family. I think that is what drives me more than anything, is getting that message out to our team members and then to the public of the amazing benefits that we offer and why this is not only can be a job, but it literally can be a career for you.
And I love that because it kind of goes back to what we were saying initially of you get the job as, the chief people officer, and then you're going in the stores and you're working with the front line. Being able to be at the front line and work your way up, it's going to give you that exact same effect, if not more, because now there's been years, months, there's been so much time spent understanding and those, you're building camaraderie with the front line. So I really love that. That's so great. And I remember growing up, I used to watch Coming to America, and there's like this scene where this guy's like, he's talking to the prince, and he's like, yeah, right now I'm sweeping, but next week I'll be on fries, and then I'll be on patties, and they kind of made a joke out of it. But the reality of what you guys are doing is that you may be sweeping today, but you do have the potential of having 100 stores underneath you.
Oh, absolutely. And we have actual employees who have done that. And so they can resonate when a general manager is struggling, let's say a field leader, which is the next level above a GM, is struggling because guess what? They've been there. They've experienced that. And with this type of growth in our model, we just think it's one of the best ways to successfully develop someone is to have them experience the day-to-day, the challenges, the ebbs and flows of the business, and to become effective people leaders, because that's a significant part. Let's not forget that of their role is to lead and develop others. And so, while you can learn all these things externally, and yes, we do hire candidates externally, there is something to be said when you can resonate with that team member, that when you're trying to coach and develop them, like, I've actually done this before, and here's what I did when I was in your position.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So the last 2 years you've been at Chipotle, what has this taught you about yourself?
Wow. It's so funny. I love a challenge. I think that's what drives me. Things that normally that one would think, oh no, let me go the other way. I sort of run into it. And it's proven to me that the sky is the limit. And I think I've learned even more and more how critical it is to cross collaborate with different functions, because I remember when I was being interviewed by Scott Boatwright, our current CEO, and Brian Nickel, our prior CEO. And I honestly don't remember which one asked me this question, but I know the question was asked because I never forgot it. And he said, Lois, what would you do in the first, I think it was the first 60 or 90 days of, if you were offered this opportunity? And I literally remember saying, you know what, I know restaurants, but I do not know Chipotle well enough. And so my goal is to hit as many restaurants as possible so I can first understand the business. Truly, I understand the people environment, I understand restaurant, I understand food, but I never worked in your restaurant before. And I think it would be a disservice not to spend some time into the heat of your business. So when I do make recommendations to implement different things in the field, I have a really good eye and perspective of what it takes for it to be successfully implemented, because you can have a beautiful idea, and I've seen it many times, and well intended, but it just doesn't fit well in that environment. Idea is still great, but how does it fit in that space? And so I did that quite a bit, and still do, visit our restaurants and our business. And what's really interesting that I love? I tell my team this all the time. Every time I visit our restaurants, I literally walk away learning something new. And I've been visiting a lot of restaurants. I learned something new. It is amazing how many things you don't realize that happens in that small box of 30 to 40 employees on a day-to-day basis.
I love that. That makes me so happy, because I've had relationships and I've worked with people who felt like they just know it all. And when you feel like you just know it all, it's really hard, one, for you to meet me where I'm at and understand my perspective, but also it's harder for you to grow, because that means you're there, you've plateaued. What would you say to leaders who feel like they do know it all, or maybe they don't feel that way, but they refuse to like learn more, or they feel like they're not learning anything new? What would you say to those leaders to encourage them to start learning and, like we said, be more curious and like just look and see different details? Like, what would you say to that?
So that's very unfortunate, because even at my level of my career, I still feel I have a lot to learn. I think when you stop learning, you stop living. It's my opinion. I just feel that there's so much more out there, and so many different ideas and perspectives of all age groups. It's not a seniority thing or age thing. There's so much to learn. I have 2 children of my own that are attending college, and I'm also learning still from them. Look at where we are today when it comes to AI and the different technologies that are upon us right now. And so if you shut yourself off from things like that, I think you're honestly doing yourself a disservice. You have to be curious. I think the human brain, functions better if it's curious. And so I try to stay curious. And many times, and I know it can be annoying sometimes, even for my children, I keep asking, well, why is that? Why is that? And it's because I'm really trying to understand, the whole grasp of it. And my brain is just like a sponge. And it's going so fast trying to understand and really engaged in learning. So I think if you have a leader that feels they're at a point that they're at a capacity of no one can tell them anything, then I wouldn't call that a highly effective leader. And they may not admit it, but it will be it's a shortcoming. You can learn from a 5-year-old, right? You can learn from a millennial, a teenager. So now you may have deep knowledge based on your expertise and experience, and that shouldn't, that's really important. That's critical. But there are other ways of doing things. And I think you just have to keep an open mind and listen. First of all, listen. Give them the opportunity, the other person, to hear them out. And then decide if it's something that you'd like to consider on further.
That's great. That's really, really well spoken. Do you feel if someone's at a place where they feel like it's not even from a place of arrogance, but there's just nothing more that they can learn, do you feel like that's a sign that they need to go and maybe venture out and do something different?
Yeah, they need a challenge. And I don't think it's anything wrong letting your manager know that. We all have different personalities or different things that drives us. And so maybe that's taking on additional responsibility. Maybe that's making it clear and asking, I really love what I'm doing, but I really feel I could do more, and here's why. Just don't say you feel like doing more because you've been here 20 years. Be able to constructively show those accomplishments and those challenges that you've overcome and those projects that you've successfully completed. There's nothing more than having an ambitious, talented employee that would love to do more. But you also have to be the voice for yourself. While companies such as ours, we have many different L&D, learning and development programs and initiatives that encourages it. I would tell that employee, take it also upon yourself to let your manager know where you are at the spectrum in your career and what your goals are, what you're hoping to achieve. And be okay with accepting constructive feedback, because there might be some self-reflection that you need. That, you may feel that you're here and really you're not there yet and you're struggling. And if you have a pretty good, most leaders, they'll be candid and say, you know what, I really think you're doing a great job here. These are the things that, wow, you've knocked it out of the park. But I really want you to work a little bit more on your organizational skills, or, time management, or your delivery of how you communicate with functional leaders or your peers. Sometimes it's not your intelligence or your knowledge base. It's more of, how are you able to convince people that your idea is the best idea? Are you coming at them in an overly aggressive manner, or you're commanding it, or are you having a conversation with them? And sometimes it's your delivery. Being honest.
I'm laughing because that's my wife.
Really?
Like the way I say it, like because of the delivery of it, it's just like, yeah, I missed the mark. And yeah, that's what I'm working on. So
Effective communication skills is a key component of being successful in life. And I've personally learned that through my children, actually raising two kids. But how you say it, when timing, reading the room, understanding when that would be a good time to have that conversation, praise in public, reprimand in private. These are things that are very common. Sometimes we forget, but I think they're really important to be an effective leader. And you want people working for you. You want them not they're just working because they need a job or until they find the next opportunity. You really want where they feel that they can have a constructive conversation and they're being heard. You may not be able to say yes to something, but I think being thoughtful and considerate with your response and really thinking about it makes a difference, and it's respectful.
thank you. That's great. I'm sorry. I'm just like, gosh, I have to go apologize to my wife after this. Because you're so right. And evidently she was right too. But sticking to the topic, so Chipotle, you guys have a lot of amazing like internal things that you do, which is, treating your employees like they're internal guests. What is your hope for the rest of the restaurant industry as it comes to in regards to the way that they treat their employees and things like that?
Not able to speak about a particular company, but this goes for any company. Uh, there's one thing that's clear. Everyone wants to be seen, they want to be valued, and they'd like to be heard. As a leader, as a manager, for me, situational leadership is really important because we all don't respond the same way to things. And we all don't interpret things the same way based on the delivery. And so I think one of the things as a leader that's really important, and these are different courses that we also implement throughout our organization, situational leadership, but is really understanding what it really means to be an effective leader. You can hold someone accountable and get them to their highest peak of performance, but how you deliver that message and how they respond, and you notice how they respond, you need to be able to assess that and not just, to me, put a broad brush. Whereas there were days in my career where I'd have leaders say to me, well, this is the way I lead, and they can take it or leave it. And obviously, that's not a long-term strategy to retain talent. Situational leadership is important, and as an effective leader, I think is important. So that's whether you're in restaurants or you're a people leader in any facet of society. I think what we try to do is, we really feel that we're doing significant headway on how people enjoy our delicious food. But we know the most important thing is that those employees that are sitting at that line that's serving that food, they're our value proposition for our organization. One of the things that I've learned being in human resources for such a long time is having difficult conversations for all levels is not easy. And it's not easy having those conversations. Do you get more comfortable? Well, I'm in human resources, so there are times that more times than ever, I've had to have some difficult conversations. So it's trained and learned, and so forth. And that's the advice that I'm giving the audience is just based on my own professional, personal experience. And so accountability doesn't mean that you say nothing. You're not holding them accountable. You're holding them accountable, but it absolutely means that you want to be transparent from where you're sitting, where they're sitting. Because sometimes it's not reciprocal. They're thinking one thing, they're here, and you're thinking, by gosh, you've got a lot of work to do on this. Here's what I need to see. But you should say that. You should be specific about what those things are that they need to work on. And we all need to work on things. I have things I need to work on. There's no perfection here. Human to human conversations, when done, in kind, with accountability, is still very effective.
In your role, having to have these tough conversations consistently, and I feel like what I'm getting from this conversation is the biggest thing you do because you're curious, because you listen and you allow others to feel seen and heard and valued. It does create the context to where you would know how to approach someone, right? Like you know how to approach this particular employee because you have a relationship. What was the most difficult time that you had when you first started in these type of roles of dealing with HR, dealing with these, you're the one who comes with, hey, HR is coming. You may or may not have done something wrong. How did you get comfortable in that space?
Yeah. So first of all, that's one of the biggest misnomers about human resources. All we do is hire and fire, which is completely not the case. We like to do less of the firing or the separating, but there are times you have to help someone find their happiness elsewhere. And it's just not a good fit, reciprocal. Yeah. And so sometimes you are doing that person a favor and, giving them that type of feedback. Obviously, being in HR throughout the years, I've had to have these conversations. So the more you do something, the more comfortable you are. But again, for me, it's my approach. I've learned my approach. First of all, when HR walks into the room, the pressure is out. When they say human resources will be here, someone's thinking, oh my gosh, am I going to lose my job? Most of the times that's not the case. But yes, because, many times we are visible during those conversations. And so what I try to do with these conversations is immediately knowing my position is lowering the temperature for the individual. Where they're saying, I'm here today for us just to have a conversation about ABC. So I try to lower the temperature with them. One of the nice things is, and most companies do this, you have reviews, mid-year check-ins or reviews. We're actually actually in the process now of doing those. And the whole point of that is when someone at the end of the year is getting a final review for the 2025, for me, I don't want any surprises from my directs that whatever that rating or that assessment were, or that feedback, that they were taken back because there was no conversation throughout the year. I think that is not good at all. I think having those continuous check-ins and conversations, if in fact that you have to have a difficult one at the end of the performance year, it should not be a surprise. And sometimes I've said that to my team. I personally don't like those kind of surprises. So I'd like to be told where I'm at, how am I doing, what do I need to self-correct or bring awareness to. And I really try to over-communicate to my team where we sit as a team. And we're a team. Their success is my success. Their failure is also my failure. And I look at it like that. So I think, again, it goes back to the approach word. How you approach the messaging when you're having these conversations. And in being human resources, yes, the temperature is risen because you're HR. But I try to lower that temperature first so we can really have a constructive conversation.
As we're getting ready to wrap up, I just have one last question for you, which is, because this is obviously Prosper and we're all about the future of the food service and hospitality industry.
Yes.
What advice would you give to emerging leaders or even people who are fresh out of college, who are looking to pursue a career in this industry with hopes of one day being at the VP level, the director level, even the C-suite level?
No matter what level you're at, whether you're a crew employee or a grill operator or the cashier, and I tell my kids the same thing, you are being measured at the position you are currently in, potentially to do something more, but your report card is what you're doing now. So if you have a desire to do more, which I hope you will, Chipotle, do your very best. Show up. Be ready to show your guests, to show your teammates that you are here, you're a team player. And when you experience, not if and when, you experience adversity throughout your career, just get back up. My own advice to find someone that you honestly can confide in and speak to and bounce off of. And it's not exactly the person that's going to always agree with you. The person that would challenge you. To say, you know what? You're my friend, but I kind of think your boss was right. In this case. Maybe you shouldn't have raised your voice at the employee or that sort of thing. Have someone. That's one of the things that I have been extremely fortunate that I've had some amazing 2 mentors in my entire career that to this day are individuals at very senior levels throughout their careers, very successful, but also others that are where they need to be that I confide in. And did I approach this right? And I want you to be honest with me. Just don't tell me what I want to hear. And so I think you need to find someone, whether it's at work, outside of work, in some organization or group within that space to give you some guidance, mentorship. And then the other thing is, look back when you are in that position. Who else can you develop? Become a mentor for and give advice and coach. Because that's the way we're going to be able to do this successfully, overall. So fall down, pick yourself up. It was just a scratch. Put a Band-Aid on it. This too shall pass. It may seem like it's the end of the world, but it's not. And just keep moving.
Lois, thank you so much for that amazing advice. This has been such a great episode. I'm so encouraged and motivated, and I've been taking notes this entire time. So
Okay.
I have a lot of homework that I have to do because, like you said, I want to be a great leader. I want to be a leader who is empathetic and who not only can motivate, but can empower and can encourage people who are following me and are working alongside me.
And still hold them accountable.
And hold them accountable.
You could still do both. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. We hope you found valuable takeaways to apply in your own organizations. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to the Prosper Brief on your favorite podcast platform. We'll see you next time here on the Prosper Brief.